Coming up today, Korea's election agency has submitted a redrawn electoral map for the National Assembly's approval. But the ongoing row over a controversial anti-terrorism bill is likely to impede the map's early passage. China's top nuclear envoy throws his support behind a UN draft resolution that aims to strongly sanction North Korea for its recent nuclear and missile provocations. Plus, more bloodshed in Baghdad as twin suicide bombings kill at least 70 people. The Islamic State group claims responsibility. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, February 29th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, Korea's election watchdog has submitted a new electoral map to the National Assembly. With a general election in mid-April fast approaching, they hope to get it passed on this Monday. Standing in the way, an opposition-led filibuster. Shin Se-min starts us off.
The ball is back in the parliament's court. Just 45 days before a parliamentary election slated for April 13th, the National Election Commission's Redistricting Committee has reached agreement on a new electoral map after months of back and forth between the rival parties. The new map allocates 253 of the parliament's 300 seats to district representatives, up from the previous 246, and 47 to proportional representatives. The election watchdog submission comes amid an ongoing filibuster initiated by the main opposition Minju Party of Korea over a ruling party-backed counterterrorism bill. The question now is whether the party will end the filibuster to allow a vote on the electoral map at a plenary session scheduled for Monday. Under the current law, a parliamentary session cannot proceed with a filibuster in progress. However, the end of the filibuster would automatically bring the disputed counterterrorism bill introduced last week by the Assembly Speaker up for a vote as well. The Minju Party claims the counterterrorism bill will give the nation's spy agency too much power to conduct surveillance on citizens.
Our party doesn't oppose the whole counterterrorism bill. All we want is to remove a clause within it that gives extra power to the National Intelligence Service.
The ruling Saenuri Party says the bill will protect citizens in the wake of threats from North Korea and beyond.
It is deplorable to see opposition lawmakers carrying out this relay filibuster without any consideration for national security or the people's livelihoods.
If the filibuster continues to delay the vote on the new electoral map, the opposition will no longer be able to avoid criticism for holding up legislative affairs. Pundits are predicting the two main rival parties will find a way to reach a compromise before the scheduled vote on Monday, because with the election looming, too much is at stake. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, with the March 1st Independence Movement Day right around the corner, anticipation is growing for an address to be delivered by President Park Geunhye, especially given the timing of the occasion. The speech comes after the US submitted a draft resolution to the UN aiming at least to impose the strongest sanctions yet on North Korea following its recent string of provocations, and follows a landmark deal with Japan on the wartime sexual slavery issue. Analysts expect the president will deliver a strong message to Pyongyang urging the regime to denuclearize, while warning the pursuit of nuclear weapons will only lead to the regime's collapse. To Tokyo, President Park seems set to emphasize the importance of staying true to its bilateral agreement with Seoul and to stop efforts to backtrack on the deal. China's top nuclear envoy in Seoul for a 5-day trip has joined his South Korean counterpart in voicing support for a UN draft resolution that aims to sanction North Korea for its recent nuclear and missile provocations. However, thorny issues such as the deployment of a US missile defense system to the Korean peninsula were not discussed. Gwon-swa with the details.
South Korea and China's top envoys to the six-party denuclearization talks gave high marks to the unprecedented sanctions on North Korea, which are likely to be passed by the UN Security Council soon.
The two sides have agreed to support the adoption of a new UN Security Council resolution in response to North Korea's nuclear test and satellite launch.
We see eye to eye on the idea that North Korea needs to make qualitative improvements in its thoughts and actions, and that it's now time for a turning point in the 25 years of dealing with the North Korea nuclear issue.
Hwang also stressed the importance of bilateral strategic talks between Seoul and Beijing toward greater cooperation among the 5 six-party talks members, excluding North Korea. Wu Dawei, China's special representative for Korean Peninsula affairs, is on a 5-day trip to South Korea, his first in 5 years, to exchange views with his South Korean counterpart and other officials on the international response to North Korea's recent violations and the situation on the Korean Peninsula. Earlier in the day, Wu told reporters, as strategic cooperative partners, China and South Korea could discuss just about any issue on the basis of their mutual respect for one another. That seemed to be an indication that the possible deployment to South Korea of the U.S. missile defense system, known as THAAD, which China opposes, is on the table too. However, Seoul's six-party talks representative Hwang Jung-guk told reporters that his Chinese counterpart made no comment on the THAAD deployment. Ever since China reached agreement with the U.S. on the draft UN resolution, there has been rising speculation that the two countries may have reached a compromise on THAAD, as Seoul and Washington recently delayed their first official talks on the matter. The issue could come up at some point during Wu's visit, including at a meeting with Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se Monday. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has thanked the hundreds of thousands of North Koreans who have volunteered for military service. According to the North state-run Korean Central News Agency and Korean Central Television on Sunday, Kim sent a letter of appreciation, praising the some 1.5 million, including labourers and students, for their will to serve the regime. The letter came within 2 days after the Supreme Command of the North's military issued a statement denouncing an upcoming South Korea-US military drill, warning of a preemptive strike on targets in Seoul and Washington. On top of this, the state-run Nodong Shinmun newspaper called the US an evil empire obsessed with its theory of weapons being the key to win wars. The US recently test-fired a ballistic missile, which was seen as a display of its nuclear arms capability intended for North Korea. Economic policymakers from the world's 20 biggest economies have vowed to fight terrorism by closing loopholes and rooting out deficiencies in the global financial system. In a communiqué following a meeting in Shanghai, the G20 officials urged the France-based Financial Action Task Force to intensify its work on identifying, analysing and tackling terrorist financing threats, as well as the sources and methods of funding. Now, since the November Paris terror attacks, some 50 countries have responded to a new call by the task force to cut off funding to terrorists. The task force blacklist includes North Korea, Afghanistan and Syria, and has recently advocated greater attention on Pyongyang. South Korea's finance minister says he's ready to counter any sharp currency swings after the Korean won's recent tumble against the greenback. Yoo Il-ho told reporters on Sunday that he's keeping close tabs on the foreign exchange market as the Korean currency has faced increasing volatility amid global financial instability. Now, the won closed at a 6-year low of 1,239 won to the US dollar on Thursday. The finance minister said it's necessary to resume a currency swap deal with the US that expired in 2010 with the aim of stabilizing the market. He did not elaborate on any other changes that would lead to a government intervention. Now, the month of March is just 1 day away, and it's expected to bring about some pretty dramatic shifts in the global economy as currency volatility, plunging oil prices and concerns over Britain possibly leaving the EU seem to deliver some kind of triple whammy. Now, analysts say that, for starters, there's no telling what the outcome of a March gathering between 4 key oil producers will be. The monetary policies of the European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan could also be X factors. Now, the biggest fear, though, stems from the possibility of the UK departing the EU. Britons will vote in a June 23rd referendum on the matter, and public opinion in the country is pretty evenly split. Any departure would deliver an especially powerful blow to Korea, whose exports to the UK would no longer benefit from the tariff exemptions in its FTA with the EU. Now, Korea's Science Ministry says it has secured over $17 million for its lunar exploration project. In phase one of its two-year plan, the ministry envisions sending an orbiter to the moon, followed by a landing vessel. In phase two, it will set up an independently developed launch vehicle. Now, the ministry also plans to develop an orbiter and a ground station using domestic technology. Korea will coordinate with foreign agencies, including NASA, to develop the payloads. Now, a new study has found that half of the world's population will be myopic or short-sighted by the year 2050. Among them, up to 1 billion people will be at a significantly increased risk of actually going completely blind. Our Park Geunhye has this report.
It seems a fact of life that we are gradually losing our vision, and it's largely being blamed on the increased use of smartphones and other electronic devices. Researchers from the Brian Holden Vision Institute, University of New South Wales, Australia, and the Singapore Eye Research Institute say half of the world's population by 2050, that's nearly 5 billion people, will be myopic. Up to 1 billion of them will be at a significant risk of blindness due to severe myopia. Myopia, or nearsightedness, is a condition where people can clearly see objects close to the eyes, but those far away appear blurry. Sufferers find it hard to even read eyesight test charts. Experts advise taking good care of your eyesight, especially when you are in your teens.
We should do a lot of outdoor activities and reduce near-range tasks. Then we'll be able to somewhat prevent the onset of myopia.
The research team estimates people in the Asia-Pacific region will be more prone to myopia than those in other parts of the world. Parents are advised to have their children's eyes checked regularly and have them refrain from spending too much time on electronic devices. Park Geunhye, Arirang News.
Now, suicide bombers on motorcycles have killed at least 70 people in twin attacks at a mobile phone market in Baghdad. The bombings in a Shiite district of the Iraqi capital on Sunday were claimed by the Islamic State militant group. The attacks are the deadliest in a wave of recent blasts that have targeted commercial areas in and around Baghdad. Earlier in the day, ISIS militants attacked Iraqi security forces on the western outskirts of Baghdad, killing at least 17 people. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister has accused Russia and the Syrian government of violating a truce agreement in Syria. The statement came on the second day of a planned two-week cessation of hostilities brokered by Moscow and Washington. At a press briefing, Adel al-Jubeir said several airstrikes were detected after the official beginning of the ceasefire and added that Riyadh was discussing the problem with the International Syria Support Group. Now, the Syrian opposition, supported by Saudi Arabia, said some 15 cases of violations of the ceasefire have been committed by both Syria and Russia. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also said that warplanes bombed 7 villages in the Syrian province of Aleppo and Hama on Sunday, but it said that, in general, the truce was being observed. 2 people were killed on Sunday in a plane crash in Seoul. The light aircraft crashed at Gimpo International Airport on Sunday evening, killing the 2 people on board, the pilot and the sole passenger. Officials say investigations are ongoing to find out the cause of the crash. Reports say the plane lost contact with ground control shortly after takeoff. The plane belongs to Hala Sky, a local pilot school. Other flights at the airport are operating as scheduled. Now, coffee lovers are being warned to keep their coffee consumption to reasonable levels, as too much could lead to osteoporosis. However, studies have shown that moderate consumption could help prevent it. So, What's the balance we should try to strike? Oh Seong reports.
Most of us go for a customary cup of coffee after dinner. And that's the case for Hwang Tae, a 60-year-old woman living in Seoul.
Coffee smells so good. I love savoring the flavor and the aroma.
But that's bad news for coffee lovers. Research from Seoul National University Hospital shows that too much caffeine in your daily cup of joe disrupts your system from absorbing calcium. This can lead to osteoporosis, a bone-thinning disease. Drinking more than 3 cups of coffee a day, a total of 330 milligrams of caffeine, exposes you to the risk. But that's not to say you should cut out coffee completely. In fact, drinking 2 cups a day decreases the chances of getting the disease by 36%, while 1 cup a day reduces the risk by 33%. For women hitting menopause, 2 cups of coffee a day can actually boost bone density.
Research shows that women who drink no more than 2 cups a day have lower chances of getting osteoporosis. This is because a sensible intake of caffeine stirs antioxidative and anti-inflammatory activities.
Researchers say it's best not to add the cream and sugar, and those who are sensitive to caffeine or have abnormal heartbeats should refrain from drinking coffee altogether. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Until then, goodbye.